Hi everyone, it's your favourite Atomic Blonde here with my nerdy weekly roundup. She-Hulk episode, I don't know, 6, 5, 6, who knows, who cares? So, we were informed at the start of this episode that it's a standalone episode because, wow, we've just been like, there's just so much story and action going on, we can barely keep up, so we need to have a breather. So, what's the riveting edge of your seat storyline this week? Jen goes to a wedding and gets pissed. Wow. So Jen gets invited to a wedding by an old school friend. She hasn't seen him forever. They're not even close anymore. And there's a whole conversation that says, well, why are you invited? She's been invited because they're, say, old friends and they probably felt obligated. But for some reason, she's been made a bridesmaid. So Jen's going to rock up, bridesmaid. We still don't see the suit that was made last week, but he made her a polka dot dress that she can wear, even though she didn't know she was going to a wedding. The one that's in the trailer. Yay. So Jen rocks up to said wedding as She-Hulk, even though she doesn't like being She-Hulk, but she likes being She-Hulk when it suits her to be She-Hulk. I don't know. Who cares? So she rocks up. Everybody's, oh, you look amazing. Oh, you got a great butt. Even though she's just walked up to them and you can't even see her bum, so maybe her friend's got X-ray vision. Who knows? Bridezilla goes, oh my God, you're not going to upstage me, are you? I didn't invite She-Hulk, I invited Jen. She-Hulk goes, sorry, I'll be Jen whole time. Soz. Some stuff happens. I think it's next day, wedding. Jen's in a bridesmaid's dress that, just a normal bridesmaid's dress, whatever. She's sort of treated as a bit of a dog's body and they get to do ironing and clear up crap, which she does. Fine. She meets some guy because obviously she's there by herself, which they make a point of saying she doesn't have a +1 because she's sad and pathetic because she doesn't have a man. But Jen's constantly telling everybody how amazingly happy she is because she has a career and everything's amazing, even though she hates her job. She constantly points out it's a token job. But hey, she's happy. Token hot guy comes over, pathetically chats her up. Hot guy, even though they're not shallow. Right, writers. Bumble with some sort of chat up line. Doesn't really go anywhere, but park that one for later. Wedding happens. We don't see the wedding. In fact, we never even see the groom. The man just doesn't exist because obviously, why would you need a man at a wedding or a groom? Titania's managed to get herself an invite because she knows somebody of something and obviously just goes there to wind up Jen. Jen gets pissed because she's Jen and not She-Hulk. Jen goes to get some air because she's going to throw up and then she throws up everywhere. Very attractive. Titania starts a fight, punches Jen in the face. Jen flies about, 100 meters or something. Now, Jen's Jen. She's not She-Hulk. So, in theory, Titania's fist should have gone through her face or certainly bruised her. Hopefully would have killed her, but no such luck. But hey, why does it need to make sense? Jen, on the floor, kind of laughing because she's pissed. Titania's like, turn into She-Hulk. Jen tries to turn into She-Hulk. She's almost too drunk to do it, but then she manages to do it. Jen hits Titania and knocks her into the reception. So, rather than trying to keep it outside and contained on the down low, she just knocks her into the reception and have a bit of a tetsu. Jen punches Titania in the face, mucks up her veneers. We find out that so she's all like buck teeth or whatever. Titania runs away with a cake. Bridezilla comes in, expecting to. Everybody's like, "Oh, Bridezilla's here," but because Bridezilla's drunk, she's just like, "Oh, I love you. You're the greatest thing ever." Wedding over. As we always get, 2 storylines. One's Jen, one's paralegal who doesn't do any work. This week, she almost does some work. We were introduced to some dude, Mr. Something or other. Immortal, that was it. Wow. Basically, he's Mr. Immortal because he can't die. Old dude, basically transpires he can't die. He's had multiple wives and a husband because, progressive. Whenever it gets too much for him, he just fakes his death and buggers off to the next one. One of the ex-wives sees a video of him killing himself, but then being alive, tracks him down. So you got 12 angry women, one angry dude, basically wanting their several, whatever's divorce, alimony, money, back payments, whatever. Luckily, because this guy's been around forever, he just happens to have shares in Apple and gold bullion. So we'll split it between you. That's like, I was married. So anyway, basically, they just all agree to what they want. One woman doesn't even want money. She just wants an apology. You go, girl. That was the episode. That was it. Shocker. Paralegal actually does some paralegal work, even though lawyers do not behave in that way, shape, or form anywhere. And Jen got pissed, threw up. And then for the second time this series, we find out Jen puts out if you buy her a plate of chips. Classy bird. Can't believe we've got 3 more episodes of this shit. On the plus, still no Daredevil. So Daredevil's still not ruined. I'm sure that we know that is coming. But that'll just be the last episode. Who knows? That way they can't do too much damage. Because, hey, let's wait for the Daredevil show to completely trash him. Yeah, brilliant. Now, I'd normally move on to House of the Dragon at this point. But I'm going to save that till last. Let's try and end on a high. So the next show, as I've been saying for weeks, that I'm going to review is Andor. Or Andor. What can I say about Andor? It's a mixed bag, is Andor. It's not terrible. It's not great. The first, so we basically, Disney dropped 3 episodes. And they had to drop 3 episodes. Geez, if all we got was episode 1, we'd all be in a coma. Holy hell. I don't know what it is with writing right now. We've veered from completely crap and cringe to crap and boring. I don't know what's going on. So the first 2 episodes are dull as dishwater. We're introduced to Andor. He's on this planet. He's looking for his sister for a series of flashbacks, which are just painful. We find out that he was on some planet with his tribe because obviously they have to be primitive or whatever. And he gets taken away from that tribe by the person who's now bringing him up, who he refers to as his mother. I kind of wasn't quite paying. I don't know if he got hurt and they took him, so I don't think they kidnapped him per se. But anyway, so he's basically looking for his sister that got left on the planet that he got taken away from. So it opens with him in a brothel because, hey, all Star Wars episodes and films have brothels, right? Looking for his sister. He draws some attention from a couple of dudes. They follow him out. They get a Sept, and they basically Andor just kills them in cold blood because, okay. But they turn out to be sort of this planet's kind of police security. You know, they're not Imperial troops. They're not that caliber. They're much lower down the level because it's some backward planet somewhere. But obviously that draws some attention. So basically, the first 2 episodes is just that he kills someone, 2 people. There's just lots of Andor walking around with purpose, down side streets, going to scrap yards, walking down to high streets, going to scrap yards, flying around, going to scrap yards, trying to find his sister. There's some relationship with it. They introduce this girl. They may or may not be exes, but there's some history there. Jealous boyfriend dobs in Andor to said place, and the shit hits the fan. It does get much better in episode 3. We do actually get what I will say, there's actually like sort of set up and payoff. So the first 2 is they set up this situation with the security guard. So at security guard HQ, you've got the sort of captain, the guy. It's brought to his attention that 2 of his men's been killed. You're then introduced to one of the officers who's quite young, very proud, obviously trying to make a name for himself. And the captain's just like, look, they were doing something they shouldn't be doing in a place they shouldn't be doing, in something that shouldn't exist. They're basically saying like brothels shouldn't exist. They were on duty. They shouldn't have been there. They were drinking and they picked on the wrong person. So let's just write it up. Say they were killed in line of duty. They were doing something good, not too good, but good. And let's just all move on. We don't need the paperwork, don't need the attention, from the Empire and whatnot. Young lad doesn't like this. He's like, we should do a proper job. Our colleagues have been murdered. This is disgraceful. So he basically spends episode 1 and 2 trying to actually find out what's been going on. He puts like an APB out on Andor and sort of stirs up the troops that we're going to go get this person. We're going to go get who killed. And as I said, jealous boyfriend dobs Andor in. So this all culminates for episode 3 that they've then gone to the planet to get Andor. Andor at this point, we know he's been trying to get hold of a certain guy. Don't really know why. This is Stellan Skarsgård, who always puts out a great performance, and no different in this. So he's set up to meet him to give him some part in exchange for some information. I think it's all to do with finding his sister. A battle ensues, obviously, when the troops arrive. People are killed in the crossfire. Basically, the girl gets the boyfriend that dobbed him in basically gets shot because his girlfriend gets hurt and she's like handcuffed up. And he goes running to try and save her, and one of the guards just shoots him. He gets sent off to the ship because it's completely uncalled for. They're like, what the bloody hell are you doing? Don't come around. We're not here to kill the locals. We're here to get Andor. So again, from a writing point of view, it's all quite good in that sense that it's very normal human reactions. The dialogue's good. It's not just dismissed. It's like, the protagonists and antagonists are all stupid. They're not. They're trained. You can see they're trained. But the whole plan basically implodes. With Stellan working with Andor to escape. They basically take out most of this platoon, which obviously there's going to be massive consequences for. It's quite funny because one of the guys in the platoon is an actor, Scottish actor, who is known in the UK that he played Trevor in EastEnders a long time ago. He was basically a wife beater in that, not a very nice guy. He's been in a few things since. He was in Chernobyl as well. But it's quite funny seeing him. He's put on a lot of timber since then. But he was good. His character was good. He sort of supported this officer sort of saying, look, too many corners are being cut here. We need to properly police. We need to, it's not okay for our troops to be getting killed. So all these elements of Andor are actually quite good. It's just you could, if you haven't seen it, I mean, you could literally go in episode 3, watch the catch up, and that would give you enough information to watch the episode 3 and know exactly what's going on. So that really tells you what the issues are with 1 and 2. They've clearly dragged this out because obviously watch minutes are really important for the streaming channels. It would have been much better if you had, because these episodes are about 40 minutes each. I'd say if you had maybe a 1 hour or 1 hour 10 episode where you condensed what happened in episodes 1 and 2 and kind of went into episode 3, it would have been so much better. I can see there'd be lots of people who would watch episode 1, maybe, I'll give episode 2 a go, and have just dropped out because it is dull as dishwater. I can't. I mean, like, there's bits, like I say, I can't even remember what happened. I was like kind of tuned out. I really should have gone back and rewatched it before doing this review, but I really couldn't bring myself to watch episodes 1 and 2 again. But 3 showed promise, say 3, and it's not, and I just want to stress, it's not because there's loads of action and things blowing up and it's all pew pew. That's not why episode 3 was good. There was just more pacing to it. Say the dialogue was good, the acting, with the sort of characterization, how it all played out was very realistic, and obviously it's clearly setting us up for the rest of the season. So I think if you do want to go check it out, by all means, watch episodes 1 and 2. You might have a completely different view to me, and that's absolutely fine. I know some people love a slow burn. They love to be able to take in everything. I'm not great with that kind of thing, but I'll leave it up to you. The look of the show is great. I think, as I said on previous streams before it aired, it's all filmed on location. I believe it's filmed in the UK. So we're not in the volume. So it's got a much more depth and feel and gritty, and it is darker, as Rogue One was, and they have sort of set out the story that it's written for adults, which is not a bad thing. I mean, but I think the problem with all the franchises is they're not really sure who they're aiming at anymore. And to be fair, if they want to do a more adult version of Star Wars, that's cool. You've got Bad Batch for the kids and Baby Yoda for the kids, so why not have a more adult version of Star Wars? I'm not opposed to that at all. I think a lot of the complaints are that, if you just walked in and sat down and started watching it and you hadn't watched Rogue One, you wouldn't have a clue that this is a Star Wars show. There's nothing in it to suggest it's a Star Wars show. That doesn't mean, you've got to have loads of people running around with lightsabers and referring to the Force, but you think, there could be more referring to the Empire or what's going on, or very much that they don't want to attract the attention of the Empire because there's no stormtroopers or anything like that around. So I think you could sort of hint at it more, or what's going on in other worlds, and how the worlds that got much more Imperial presence. That would have really sort of kind of keyed in that maybe this is a Star Wars show. So yeah, I'm a bit. I think if they keep the pacing of episode 3 and the sort of evolving of the story that we got in episode 3, there's potential it could be a good show. We do know there's been lots of showrunners and actors, probably more actors, talking about how, this is going to be discussed, immigration and Trump and things like that. Some of it, immigration was obviously, or indigenous species was very much on the nose in this one. They say we've got the flashbacks with Andor when he's a kid, but it wasn't, awful, just very on the nose. So we'll see. I believe the next episode is going to be set in Coruscant. So I guess we'll get a much more Star Warsy feel, and obviously definitely we should see the Empire in Coruscant. So let's see where it goes. I'm still trying to give it the benefit of the doubt. That I'm just hoping that the actors are just mouthing off and saying nonsense, which actually isn't really there, as we've seen in some of the other shows. Time will tell. So right now, I probably, for me, 5 out of 10, because it does look great. The writing is good. Like, the characterization is good. It's just the pacing was just atrocious, and I think it's just purely to say just stretch it out to get those watch minutes for Disney, which is a shame. They need to put, as Kathleen Kennedy says, it's all about quality. Well, let's put your money where your mouth is, love. Let's do quality and not just try and fudge the numbers. Give us something good. So jury's out right now. So it wasn't awful. It was very boring, but season 3, episode 3 really showed promise. So fingers crossed, I will watch episode 4. Let's see where that takes us. And if it adds to all the intrigue. Okay, then, as you all know, this is my favorite, House of the Dragon. So things are now moving along very rapidly. And this episode started with Daemon going back to the Vale. We've heard a lot about his wife and the bronze bitch and how he hates her and basically, doesn't want a bar of her. I mean, obviously, we know he's had affairs and obviously he's been flirting with his niece and all kinds of things. So we finally sort of see her properly. She's on a hunting trip and she's riding back to the castle. And then basically you just see a guy in a cloak, straight away that it's Daemon. And he kind of walks towards her. She's on her horse. It's a bit of dialogue obviously between them, like, oh, what are you doing here? You finally showed your face, kind of thing. And she's constantly mocking him. So we finally come to consummate the marriage. There's some there's some sheep round here. They're interested more than I am, kind of thing. And again, with this character, he doesn't really say anything. He's just sort of looking at her with contempt, really, and sort of this sort of smirk as he does. She's sort of then is your brother finally given up on you? Is that why you're here? What's your next play? What are you going to do? Slaughter the girl? And then it's like a light bulb moment, and then sort of realization dawns that actually he could marry her, and to marry her, he needs to get rid of his wife. So she goes. So as Damon's moving towards the horse, she goes to grab her bow because she's been on this hunting trip. It spooks the horse, and what I love about the show is never quite 100% clear. So you're not really, is it because Damon's come towards the horse and he smells of dragon, because we assume he's flown in on his dragon, or is it just that obviously she's gone to get her bow and spooked the horse? But either way, the horse has been spooked. It rears up, throws her down, and basically the horse lands on top of her. You hear this snapping, breaking noise, which isn't good. The horse sort of rolls off and gets off her, and she's just laying there with her arms outstretched, and she can't move. So we get from that she's broken her back. Daemon walks over to her, sort of puts his foot on her arm and applies some pressure, and obviously she can't feel that. So he's sort of like, okay, she's badly hurt. At this point, he goes to walk away. So we're not quite sure if he's like, well, I've done enough to put her out of action, or she's so badly hurt she's going to die anyway. We don't know. We don't quite know what's going on in his head. But she, Lady Rhea or Bronze Bitch, basically again just sort of goes, "Oh, knew you couldn't finish," obviously implying something very different. At that, he just, he stops in his tracks and he bends down, picks up a rock, and then walks towards her, and then basically cuts away. And then we go to Otto, who obviously got fired by the king at the end of the last episode for suggesting, easy for me to say after all this book, for suggesting that Rhaenyra obviously done something inappropriate with her uncle. Alicent goes to see him, and she's like, "I'm really sorry, things ended this way. I don't want you to go." He's very like, "Well, this is your fault. You chose Rhaenyra over me." And Alicent's like, "But she promised me that nothing happened, and I believe her, and the king believes her." And he's just basically saying, you're really naive. And Alicent's like, "Well, you shouldn't have kept pushing to have Aragon on the throne." And Otto just sort of tells her a few home truths. He's like, because all the way along we've kind of had this impression that Otto's doing it for power, and obviously wants his grandson on the throne, and it's all like a power play. his explanation here is much more actually he's doing it out of protection for his daughter, because he's like, we've seen that the king's not well, and in this episode we really see that the king's health is deteriorating quite rapidly. He's like, the king is not going to live to old age. He may be months, it may be years, but he is going to die. And where does that kind of leave you and your children if she ascends to the throne, to solidify her reign? And there's going to be the realm is going to be in uproar. She needs to kill your children. There cannot be another potential heir to the throne. And at this, Alicent obviously gets quite distressed and upset. Otto hugs her, and then he leaves. We then cut to the king on his boat with Rhaenyra heading towards the Valerian castle for obviously the wedding, or planning the wedding. And it's really, really rough, choppy seas. Everybody's kind of okay, but the king is like throwing up over the side. And again, we kind of get sort of seasickness, but again, it's also hinting to how ill he actually is, because nobody else is being sick, even though the waves are very, very choppy. It's not good, but he's exceptionally ill compared to everybody else. When they arrive, he's greeted by the son and the daughter of Lord Valerian, and again, he can tell he's not well. They take him in and says, apologies for Lord Valerian not meeting him. He's literally sort of been away, and he's just arrived back. And the king then obviously meets Lord Valerian and his wife, and there's sort of political matters to discuss. And they bring up, okay, so once the children are married, what name is it going to be? And obviously the king laughs and says, well, the name Targaryen isn't going to end with me. So once they get married, Rhaenyra will take on the name Valerian, and so will the children, until she basically takes over the throne, at which point it will then become Targaryen, and so will any of her heirs. So there's a bit of sort of bristling at this, but actually they, politically it's the best compromise, and they kind of agree to this. And also when the king's here, they sort of say, condolences to your sister-in-law, and this is obviously when the king. So we basically find out it's confirmed that Daemon killed her. Basically, they say that her back and her head were crushed in a hunting accident, and there's kind of like, oh, but she's like a really competent rider. That's a bit strange. And it's kind of hinted at, but sort of, and the king's just very much knows she was a wonderful woman, good wife to my brother, and it kind of they kind of move on from the conversation. The king retires because he's not well, and obviously this is very noticed as well, and there's conversations around the king's health. Back at with the queen, she's out walking the grounds. Obviously, she's mulling over losing her father leaving. And good old Lord Larys is there, always in the background, always ready to stir the pot. So he speaks to the queen and sort of says, it's a shame that your father had to go. And she was like, yeah, but, there's reasons. And he sort of basically says to her, but, they're unjust reasons. And she's like, what do you mean? And he makes her aware that obviously the king had the tea sent to Rhaenyra, which only means one thing, that she is no longer a maiden. And obviously Alicent is pissed, basically, because she obviously chose her over her father. Her father's now been left the kingdom. And basically the king knew, Rhaenyra knew, and obviously Rhaenyra swore to her. Now she sort of told a half-truth, well, in the sense that she swore that she didn't do anything with Daemon, which was true. But she also swore that obviously her chastity and all of that was intact. So now basically he's thrown the grenade in to say, there's no way that's true. And obviously she's kind of horrified at this. We go back to the ship. Obviously, we've got Rhaenyra is on the boat, and Kristen comes out to see her and talk to her. And And obviously he's aware that she's going to get married now. So he sort of broaches the subject to say, look, you've confided in me previously. I know that you don't like the burden of you know, the succession and what that brings in terms of, you know, you have to marry out of duty, you know, you don't get a choice in any of this, and you have to have heirs. And he basically just suggests to her, well, like, why don't we run away together? He's basically sort of saying, look, I love you, I think you love me, let's just, you know, run away, be, you know, nowhere nobody knows us, we can love together, we can, you know, get married, all of this. And you can just sort of see it going across Rhaenyra's face, what he's saying. And it's really well done. There's like a flurry of sort of emotions where initially she's kind of like, oh, that's sweet. And then when he's talking about getting married and her giving up the throne, she sort of turns away from him. There's a real like sort of oh shit moment on her face, where she sort of realizes, I think, that, you know, this means more to Kristen than it does to her. And she basically goes on to say that, you know, she can't give up the crown. She is the crown and she has her duties. And basically that when she's married, they can continue to see each other, because there was a scene previously where her and Laenor are walking on the beach, her betrothed, and they're having a conversation about what will happen when they get married. And it basically comes out, and it's very, very clear that Laenor is gay, and he has a boyfriend or a lover, whatever you want to call it. And they basically agreed that they will do their duty, they will get married, they will produce the heirs that they're expected to produce, but they will continue exploring outside of the marriage, shall we say. So Laenor can carry on seeing his boyfriend, she can carry on seeing Cole, and everybody's happy. So Rhaenyra basically sort of says this, that, you know, I've agreed this with Laenor, this is the perfect solution. And Kristen's massively offended by this. He turns around and says, all right, so you just want me to be your whore then? To which she's sort of quite taken aback, because, like I say again, I think she sort of realizes that, you know, how much more this meant to him, you know, giving up his vow of celibacy and all of those two, and his cloak, because he genuinely really cared about her or loves her. And he sort of storms off. We then sort of see that they're back at court, and Alicent asks to see Kristen Cole. She then sort of says to him, look, there's these rumors about the princess, and she's like, I can't even, you know, I can't even believe I'm asking this, and I'm not, you know, trying to hurt her in any way, but given that you're her sworn protector, you're closest to her, you know, the night that she was seen with Daemon. Now, obviously, Alicent thinks, from what she was told, that something did happen with Daemon, and that's what she's trying to hint at. She's saying, like, do you know whether she did actually sleep with Daemon? Kristen takes this as she knows, or there's a rumor that they slept together. So he just basically says, yeah, it's true, I did it, yeah, you know, I deflowered her, kind of thing, and he just spills his guts, and you're just sitting there going, no, shut up, she doesn't know, shut up. So he absolutely drops himself and Rhaenyra in it. He goes on to say that, you know, he's now sort of bereft, that, you know, he's broken his vow, he's devastated by this, and he deserves everything that's coming to him, but please don't torture him. If anything, just give him a swift, like, just put him to death and just have it over with. You know, he's made it, he's you know, just doesn't know how he's going to live with himself. Now, Alicent, at this point, we don't know if it's just out of shock, or whether, you know, she's like, something has just clicked in her head that, okay, so I've betrayed my father, I believed her, and she blatantly lied to me. But all she says to Cole is, you can go. So he then, so we assume he leaves, and obviously this is now like a bombshell's gone off for Alicent. There's a scene where we sort of see the king, as I said, being very, very ill. His whole arm is now, because previously we know he's lost his fingers off one hand. The whole arm is now looks like rotting and got some sort of blisters and boils on it. He's being treated, but you can just really sort of see him deteriorating fast. And there's a conversation with his new advisor, and he's sort of saying, you're doing the best you can. This is a really good move. The wedding will sort things out. It's all going to be okay. A bit like this is the best Christmas that Wolf has ever seen. It's like kiss of death, Anyway, we then go back to, there's the wedding feast, and there's going to be a week-long celebrations for the wedding. And we've got, the king's there at the top of the table with his daughter and all the sort of royalty. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from. All the sort of royalty and lords and lairds and ladies are all obviously coming to the feast. We see Jason Lannister, who obviously was hoping to marry her, sort of comes up and sort of congratulations, and he's quite salty about this and makes a comment that the queen's not there. He says, "Oh, where's the queen? I was hoping to, introduce, whatever they do, pass on their whatevers." And and the king says, "Oh, well, she's still getting ready." And he makes a comment that basically says, "This is why men rage war, because as women would not be ready in time." And they all sort of laugh, and he kind of goes off, and Rhaenyra's just like, "Yeah, what an arse." But he sort of gets to dig in. But it's actually quite important that the queen's not there. So Gerald arrives, who's the cousin of Lady Rhea, Bronze Bitch. And again, the king gives his condolences, and Rhaenyra's like, if there's anything we can do, the crown can do, let us know, kind of thing. And people go to sit down. Then Lord Valerian, Lord Valerian and his party arrives, and it's a proper drop the mic moment. They come in, and they're all like the gold and splendor, and they all came in, and it's absolutely brilliant. And so walks up, and then Rhaenyra comes round, and they takes the hand of Laenor and that betrothed, and they all go and sit down. And the king stands up and starts to do a speech about how, bringing the houses together and all of this. And then basically he gets interrupted with the queen walking in. And this is absolutely purposeful. This by what she's wearing. She's basically wearing this green dress. And as she comes in and walking through, there's basically some discussion saying, "Oh, she's wearing green." And the king's not going to be happy, because basically green is the color or banners of war for the high towers. So she's making a really big statement by wearing green, especially at the wedding feast. So she comes up to the table and gives her apologies, and sort of greets Rhaenyra and sort of congratulations with face like thunder. And Rhaenyra's kind of like, "Oh, what's going on?" So she sits down. He resumes his speech. When the speech is done, Gerald comes over. And then Daemon walks in. So Daemon had walked in and sort of swaggers up, and he's allowed to sit at the top table. Sorry, he came in after the Valerians. And he's also saying they're all smirky and cocky as always. So Gerald comes up to him and basically sort of accuses him of killing Lady Rhea. And he's just like, "Who are you? Who?" And he's like, "I'm her cousin." And he's like, "So, he's just really not asked one iota." And he's like, people from the Vale, answer to their crimes. And he's like, "Well, people from King's Landing, answer to slander," kind of thing. And he just gets like, "Well, actually, I'm actually quite glad you're here, because, I wanted to talk about my inheritance. So, as you know, like, we didn't have any offspring, so therefore anything that was entitled to her is now going to come to me. So is that okay? Let's talk about that. Absolutely smug shit. Daemon all over. It's absolutely brilliant. And obviously it's not the time or the place to Gerald is fuming, but goes. So there's then a sort of a dance scene, and there's just lots of looking backwards and forwards, and you can kind of like this whole sort of triangle between like Laenor and his boyfriend, because his boyfriend's there, so Lord Joffrey. So you got Laenor keeps looking at Joffrey. You've got Kristen Cole keeps looking at Rhaenyra and vice versa. You've got Daemon looking at Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra looking at Daemon. It's like subtle as a brick. Like anybody just observing can see all this going on. And to the point that basically Lord Joffrey clocks, Christian like getting more wound up and keeps looking at her and goes over to Laenor and go, I know who a bit on the side is. It's Kristen. And he rather sort of foolhardily goes over to Kristen and sort of says, look, hey, no secret, mate, dude. Hey, and Kristen's like, what are you on about? And he's like, hey, look, it's cool, I'm his bit on the side, you're going to be her bit on the side, we can all protect each other, have each other's backs, don't worry about it. To which like Cole's like, I have no idea what you're on about, and he's not pleased. We then see Daemon, like a snake, just slither his way onto the dance floor, and moseys on up to Rhaenyra. And obviously they start talking in High Valyrian, and they're dancing, and the king sort of clocks this, and he's like, what's going on? And he's not happy. He does not want Daemon within 100 yards of his daughter. And the conversation between them is kind of like he's like, well, what are you doing? This doesn't suit you, all this sort of, doing your duty thing. And she's like, well, sort of like basically almost dares him to kidnap her and goes, well, why don't you, I'm sure you're armed, why don't you fight for all these guards, take me and take me back to your kingdom and marry me, and we're all together kind of thing. It's just like really goaty, like called each other's bluff almost kind of thing. And you see the king trying to see what's going on, because Damon's kind of got his hand on her face and it's all looking quite, and then the crowd kind of closes in and we hear this scream and there's a scuffle, and then this fight breaks out. Now we don't know who started the fight, why the fight was started, and it kind of happens sort of behind Daemon and Rhaenyra. And then sort of all hell sort of that starts breaking loose, and there's this fight going on. We see the Lord Laenor get hit and flung. Rhaenyra's on the floor trying to stay out of reach, and we sort of see there's just punches being thrown all over the place. Then basically one of the guards is sort of sent in to get the king's like, where's Rhaenyra? Go find her, go get her. I think it was Bonebreaker who goes and gets her, sort of chucks her over his shoulder, walks her up, gets her out of the fight, and then the crowd kind of opens up, and what we see is Kristen Cole beating on Lord Joffrey, Laenor's boyfriend, and he absolutely pulverizes him. There's no two ways about it. His face is just mush. His face is absolutely caving, because obviously he's beating him with his he's got his armor on and his armored gloves, and he's just punching him in the face over and over again until he kills him. Like I say, his face is completely mush. It's like a bowl of blancmange on the floor. Everybody kind of backs away. Damon's gone. We don't know where Damon's gone. He's just disappeared. Obviously people are sort of distressed and screaming. Laenor sees him there and sort of crawls over and just bursts into tears, which obviously isn't really the done thing that he's, for him to be seen to be doing. It then just basically then cuts to when we hear a priest, and basically there and then, while there's still blood on the floor, the body's been taken away, so it's probably about 5-10 minutes later or something, because he's sort of still got a bloody nose, he's got a tissue, got blot in his nose, Laenor, where he got punched. and basically, but they're married there and then, because they're just like, because during this fight, the king nearly kills over. There's all blood. He's like hemorrhaging out of his nose. So he's like, this poor king is just like, I'm done. You're getting married now. This fighting's going to stop. And so that's how the episode ends. So basically, she's then got married to Laenor. Daemon's scuttled off somewhere. The queen knows Rhaenyra's secret and Cole's secret, and she's basically sort of put a pledge out there that wearing her green dress is basically an act of sort of civil war. So what an episode. It just flew by. There's just more intrigue every week. There's just like layers of stuff going on. There's all these characters now coming into play and we're all servants, like stirring the pot, and obviously got their own agendas. I am just loving this show. Again, I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's just the one thing a week I've got to look forward to. So I wanted to save it to the end. Yeah, absolutely loving it. Next week we know, or this Monday, we know it's the time jump with the new actresses coming in to play Alicent and Rhaenyra. So fingers crossed they do a good job, you know, because the setup has been fantastic. We're all just waiting for the payoff. You know, we know now that there's going to be some sort of, we always knew there was going to be civil war if Rhaenyra, you know, became queen, but now it looks like, you know, there's something preempting that, obviously with Alicent setting out her stall. Obviously she's, from what her father told us, she knows she needs to protect herself and her children. The time jump is, I think, sort of 10, 15 years, maybe 15 years, because looking at Aragon, he looks about sort of 15 to 17 in this episode. Obviously, he's like 2 or 3 at the moment. And funny enough, it's David Tennant's son. I think he's called Ty Tennant, who's going to be playing Aragon. So see if the older acting genes run in the family. I mean, obviously he's come from, you know, both sides of the family are actors, and Georgina Moffat's father is Peter Davison, who also played the Doctor. So yeah, high hopes that he's a good actor, because I think obviously this character is going to be absolutely pivotal. With the intrigue that's going to happen, and you know, does Rhaenyra end up killing these kids? I don't know. I've not read the books. I can't wait to find out. So do tune in. If you haven't watched it yet, I really, really advise you, if you know, to go check it out. If it's the first one that you're watching, I did say the very first episode is a little bit ploddy, a little bit slow, because it's having to do all the setup, but do stick with it. You know, 3, 4, 5, it's just absolutely taken off, and the ratings are going up each week, which is great to see. Obviously, we know we're already getting a season 2. I really just can't speak highly enough about this show. The directing, the look, the acting, the dialogue, it's just nailed. It's, yeah, I mean, to say it's like the best thing on TV right now actually isn't much of a compliment because there's so much crap, but it is good. It is good. It does deserve, I think, the accolades that it's getting. Is it, you know, is it the best show ever made? No, it's not. But hey, it's bloody good. So Mondays here in the UK, as I say, on Sky or Now TV, and it's on HBO on a Sunday in the States. So that's been my TV watchings. There's a show in the UK that's just started. I think there is an American version of it called Ghosts. It's a comedy on the BBC. It's now started its 4th season. It's a little bit of sort of old sort of sitcom in some ways. It's just a premise of a couple inherit this old mansion house in the UK, like out in the countryside. It's sort of, you know, it's sort of falling apart. You know, it's been sort of left to deteriorate, just because the upkeep of it, and sort of the last person that had it didn't have children, so she's sort of like a long lost relative who's inherited the house. And they move into the house because they say they haven't got any money themselves, and they sort of throw themselves like, well, we'll do up the house, and then we can turn it into a hotel or B&B or something. And when she's there, she basically has a fall and has a head injury. And when she comes back, you can basically see the ghost. So basically, that anybody that dies on this property is sort of trapped there, and they become a ghost. So we've got like six or seven ghosts, all different periods of time. Like one's a caveman, one's like from the Victorian era. We've got a guy who's a scout leader who was there in the 80s, and one of his scouts accidentally shot him through the neck with an arrow, so the arrow's still stuck in his neck. You've got a guy from like the Renaissance time who's a poet who's absolutely awful, but he thinks he's a brilliant poet. You've got a Conservative MP who is just the best character, but it happens he has no trousers on because obviously it was some like Christmas party and he was doing some lewd act as a Conservative MP would behind his wife's back, and sort of has a heart attack and died there. So he's always walking around with his shirt and tie and a jacket, but no trousers and no pants. And he's just got his sock suspenders on, but he's a brilliant character, absolutely brilliant. No scruples at all, politician, very, very funny. And it's just basically, she can see them, her husband can't, but she makes him aware of these ghosts, and it's just unraveled over 4 seasons. There's only like 6 episodes per season, and it is like a little bit of an old-fashioned sort of sitcom, but it's very, very funny. I think last year and the year before we could kind of get little Christmas specials as well, which are great. I think Jennifer Saunders guest starred in the Christmas special last year, but it's just really, really light-hearted. There's quite a lot of double entendre in there. It's just kind of silly, light-hearted, and the cast play all the characters, like all the different ghosts, and there's also like in the cellar there's a load of ghosts which are basically killed off by the plague, so they're all kind of bit mangled, but it's the same cast that plays those. If it just was a little bit of light-hearted comedy, do go check it out. All 4 seasons are on iPlayer. It started season 4 started on Friday. It's on BBC One. I think it's on 8 o'clock. But so you can just binge watch it on iPlayer. So you just want to say a bit light-hearted, a bit fun, that just sort of take you out of your day. Go watch Ghosts. I really recommend it. It's just silly British humour like it used to be. So yeah, that's what I've been watching this week. Obviously, I will persevere with Andor next week. Flipping She-Hulk. Jeez, it's like 3 episodes to go. I can do this. It's going to be okay. I'm not sure my liver can take it, but hey, let's keep going. So anyway, I hope you like every time I mention the word She-Hulk, my brain just oozes out of my ears. Try again. I hope you have liked what you've seen today. If you have, do please share and subscribe. Likes really do help with the algorithm and help get the channel out there. It's only a few months old, and I do this weekly show. I'm going to be doing a new segment, Atomic Rewind, where I'm going to be looking at older shows and films, miniseries, those kind of things. So, as winter's coming in and those horrible winter evenings and we don't want to venture out, there could be some recommendations for things you could go find out. Hoping to get the first couple up imminently. I'm going to be looking at 2012 Dread film, and how could I not? But it's what my channel's named after, Atomic Blonde, one of my favorite films. So that'll be coming shortly. Hope you like the new segment. Do leave comments. Do let me know what you like and what you don't like. And I will be back next week. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.